Hey everybody, this is Mr. Storm, and oh my gosh, you guys, we're actually doing it. We are going to begin working on our project, our own original game that we've thought of and we've made the artwork for and we've dreamed about what it will look like. We actually get to start doing that today. I'm very excited. Sorry, I got to compose myself a little bit. All right. So I've created a brand new project in Unity. I have given it the name of my project. Mine is going to be called Lonely Robot. And it's very, very blank. It's very empty. So we're going to want to build our first level in this main scene. So this is called Sample Scene. Before we really get started, I'm going to want to rewrite or rename this scene so that I don't get confused later. I'm going to rename this Level 1. And that way I know that I'm working on Level 1 and I'm not working on something new, something that, it just makes it a little easier. The next thing I want to do is I want to set up my camera properly. Because we're trying to make an old school, like Super Nintendo style game. So my camera needs to fit that mold. And our game is built for 32 by 32 pixel squares. And I know how many of those squares I want to fit within my camera. So it's best if we just start with a camera that's already set up. Sorry, I had to get a drink of water there real quick. So the easiest way to do this is if we go into our game view here. Notice that by default, we have free aspect, or whatever the last camera setting that you used was for your last project. If you click on free aspect, you have a bunch of options here. You might have some that you've custom made or that other people have made. But one of the defaults that you should have is this one called 4:3. 4:3 will set up your camera so that it looks like it's about the right size for an old, CRT monitor, which is what we all used to play Super Nintendo on. Old, like, cathode ray tube TVs, that kind of stuff. So this nice, like, slightly fatter than it is tall square, that's what we're looking for. And if we go back to scene view, we can see that our camera actually fit perfectly into that box. Okay, so now we have to get into putting some artwork in here. For this project, for this week, all we're really concerned with is building the first level of our game. Okay, and we're not even going to build everything in the first level. We're just going to build the basic structure of our first level. So I'm going to right click and create a new folder. I'm going to call it Sprites. And then inside my Sprites folder, I want to go to my resources, my assets that I collected last week. And I'm going to grab my environmental art and bring that in. Okay. Now I need to set this up properly. So just like we've always done with all of our sprites in this game, in our games, we're going to set the pixels per unit. I'm going to set it to 32 because 32 pixels per unit. I want to turn off the filter and I want to turn off the compression and hit apply. Now there's one more thing that we have to do to this piece of art in order to use it properly. We have to change its sprite mode to multiple and then hit apply. And now we can go into our sprite editor and we can cut this thing up the way we want it to. I'm going to go to slice and let's try automatic and see if that works. Nah, it didn't really work. So instead, let's try grid by cell size. I know that my grid is 32 by 32. So there we go. Now we have a perfectly spliced grid. I'm going to hit apply. And now I should have all of those individual pieces of art. So one way we could build this level is we can start dragging out our pieces here and we can kind of push them side by side and try to get them as close to each other as possible and make sure that it all kind of looks good. And we could do that. And that's how we used to have to do it. And it sucks, man. I'm telling you, it is not good. This is not fun at all. No one likes it. Everyone hates it, right? And so what Unity did was they said, hey, guess what? Let's give you the tools you need to be able to paint perfectly onto a grid your tiles very, very quickly and easily. And we all said, yes, please, and thank you for that, Unity. You are the best. So what Unity did was they created something called Tilemap System. So over here in the hierarchy, I want to right-click, go to 2D Object, and I want to select a tile map. Now there's a bunch of other tile maps in here. We're not going to worry about those. We're going to go with the basic tile map. Now notice that the tile map, when I created it, it created something called the grid. This is the grid. The grid are all the horizontal and vertical lines that make up the grid, the thing that we're going to draw our tile map onto. The tile map itself has a bunch of options over here that we're not really going to pay attention to. One thing that we could pay attention to, really, if we wanted to, if we go to grid, over here in cell gap, there's a little bit of, there's some stuff we can play with in the cell gap here. If for some reason, whenever we create our tile map and you're playing your game and you notice that there's some flickering between your tiles, you may want to come in here and add like a 0.01, 0.01 gap in there. Or negative. I think it's negative. Anyway, we'll play around with that if we run into that problem. But most of the time, you're never going to deal with this. You're pretty much going to leave all of these options alone and all of these options alone. We just need the tile map to be on this this grid. Now I want to rename my tile map because we're going to have multiple tile maps in one level. So I'm going to rename this to ground. And this is just going to make up the solid ground that we want our level to be made of. All right. Now, in order to get these tiles onto the tile map, we need something called a tile palette. The tile palette is basically like if you're a painter, you have a palette with a bunch of different colors on it, and you dip your brush in the color and then you use that to paint. That's the exact same thing that we're looking for here. Now, by default, you're probably not going to see the tile palette menu anywhere. So you're going to need to go up to Window, 2D, Tile Palette. So that's how you're going to find it. Window, 2D, and Tile Palette. Okay. So now we have this new palette. We need to create a new palette. So we have the Tile Palette menu. We now need to create a new palette. And we're going to call this palette, I don't know, level 1. And create. Now, this menu is asking me, hey, where do you want your new tile palette to go? Notice that it's going into my game design folder, Lonely Robot, Assets, and Sprites, because that's where my level 1 artwork is. That's the folder I have open. Now, what I can do is actually create a new folder inside of Sprites, and I'll call it Tiles. And then I'll save my tile palette into there. Okay, so now I have a level 1 tile palette, and I have my new folder, and I have my level 1 tile palette in there. Perfect. Now, in order for my tiles to show up in my palette, I have to drag them into the tile palette specifically. So let me show you how this goes. Let's say this tile, I'll just drag it in, drop it there, double click on tiles, and save. There it is. We'll do the same thing for the next one. Go in there, save. Do the same thing for this one. Go on in there, save. And we just keep doing that until we have all of our tiles on the tile palette. And if you want to zoom out, you can move around here so you can see more of what you're looking at. All right, in there and save, in there and save. And all we're doing is turning these pieces of art into individual tiles that we can use to decorate our level. And the spike, I have another object that is a spike that's going to be my enemy. So I don't know, maybe I'll use it. Okay. So there's my full tile palette right there. It's all done. It's ready to go. Notice that I also have the active tile map option here. This active tile map is the ground tile map that I've created. Okay, now in order to get these onto the tile map, I have to select the tile I want to paint with, and then I have these options. The brush is probably what you're going to use the most often. The brush will allow you to just paint right onto the tile map. You just click and drag and you can paint onto the tile map. All right, so I can just start drawing in my level. Now let's say you want to rotate your tile. All you have to do is use the bracket keys. So up above the arrow where you have like the swirly brackets or the straight brackets, if you use that, you can rotate your brush around. Okay. I'm gonna make like a little like a ledge here. And let's make another. We'll go up a little bit more. And I'm just kind of painting in the basic shape of my level. I'm just kind of freehanding it at this point. I'm just kind of playing around, seeing what I can come up with, seeing what looks cool. All right, and I'm not going to get too crazy. I'll say that's a pretty good level there. Oh, now if you make a mistake like I've just done there, you can use your eraser tool to erase a part of the level that you don't want anymore. Just like up there, I'm going to need the eraser again. Man, I'm making all kinds of mistakes. These are just good examples showing you how to fix mistakes. That's why I'm making them. I'm trying to be a good example. All right, so we can erase these. Now, I have a level. The problem is, I'm noticing here, I'm going to have some issues with maybe getting up onto this next area. So maybe I can add some, maybe I can add like a jump here. You have to think about what your player is going to have to interact with in your game. Maybe I can get him up there. Let's try. Yeah, let's go this way. And again, I'm just kind of playing around. All right. And then I can fill in the insides with this purple square that I created specifically for that purpose. Now the cool thing is, because I know my player is going to be exactly 32 by 32, I know that this is going to be a tight fit for him, but he'll still be able to get through this area, right? Okay, and I'm going to set up my player so that he can jump 3 squares into the air, maybe even 4, depending on how I'm feeling. All right, so I'm going to show you another thing that we can do. This paint-filled box with active, this will allow you to just draw a square with those things in them, with whatever you have selected in it. And it makes for a really easy, Control Z, makes for a really easy way to fill in all of the areas that you're kind of missing. Let's see. All right, so all of this is going to be solid. Oh, All of this is going to be solid. The player is not going to go in here at all, so I'm just going to fill that in. Oh, I rotated these the wrong way. There we go. All right. And believe it or not, that's pretty much it. Now, what I can do at this point is I can add in some variation. So notice that I have a couple of these decoration blocks that will allow me to create something that looks a little bit different and I just want to kind of put these in here sporadically just to break up the monotony of the design, right? Make it look like it's not so uniform. And we can put some of these more drastic ones in there. And just kind of sprinkle them in wherever. And maybe like a fissure. This one's a bit extreme, so I'm not going to put it everywhere. All right, cool. All right, so that's pretty much the solid basic tile map. Now, one thing that we can do is, because I know I want my player character to interact with this, I want him to actually like bump into the walls here, I can actually add a collider to this tile map. And the collider that I want to add is going to be a Tilemap Collider 2D. This will look at all the tiles you have in your tile map, and it will create a collider around all of them. So if we see here, it's created a collider around all the tiles in my level. And now I can, when I build my character next week, I'll be able to run my character along this level, colliding with the ground like I'm supposed to, which is fantastic. That's exactly what I'm looking for. But what if we want a different tile, or what if we want to use like this rock, for example? Let's say I want to paint this rock onto my level. If I did it here, notice that it draws a collider around my rock. But maybe I don't want to actually interact with that rock. Maybe I want it just to be decoration in my level, right? So what I can do is create a new tile map. So 2D tile map. And let's rename this. Let's call it decoration. Decoration. And now this is going to be really useful if you have a ton of decorative objects in your tiles or in your sprite sheet. I only have the one or the two. But now I can go in here and I can paint in rocks wherever I want them to be without worrying about them interfering with the tile map collider that I've built. And my player will be able to run just right through those. And I can do the same thing with the spike here. Oh, I have the wrong tile map selected. Make sure you're selecting the right tile map. So here I want decoration. And I can just paint these in just kind of wherever they look nice. Now I'm probably going to set these spikes to be dangerous. So I'll be doing that later. So I might actually get rid of them now. Any objects you want your player to interact with in a special way, you don't want them in your tile map because the tile map itself is an object. So if you write code that relates to the tile map itself, it applies to every tile in that tile map. Does that make sense? So if I want my player to interact with this individual spike, then I don't want the spike to be in my tile map. I want it to be an object on its own. But for now, this is a nice decoration. I'll just leave it alone. Okay, so get in there and design your level. Make it look nice. Add in some variation. have fun with it. Make it nice and big. Mine is a really short level, but that's okay. Yours can be as big as you want. And again, remember, this is the camera size, right? So imagine that your game is going to start pretty much like this. You're going to see this when you start, and then your camera is going to follow your player as they move through the level. This is a very, very small level. Yours is hopefully going to be much bigger than this. All right. I'm at 20 minutes, so I don't want to take up too much of your time. I will let you go and play and experiment and make your first level for your video game. All right. See you guys later. Have fun.